Welcome to the Learning Project Network, where we learn through stories to make a change. The Learning Project Network, an organization dedicated to social justice issues. We are dedicated to learning about issues that impact children, families, and communities to help start conversations that lead to solutions. We believe that through storytelling and peer support, individuals can better understand how experiences lead to outcomes.
Hey everybody, it's Stephanie with the Learning Project. I am so excited today. First of all, y'all, you know I'm about bringing people onto the platform that you can listen to, learn from, and follow. I have Nneka Hall here. She is so amazing. First of all, if you have not checked her out, please do. You are going to learn some things today. Nneka, I want to thank you so much for being here at the Learning Project. You are doing some phenomenal work in our communities and in your local community. So tell us, who are you and what are you doing to make a difference in this crazy world?
Well, thank you for having me first and foremost. Who am I? Geesh. Right now, I am Jelani's mom, Symone's mom, Annaya's mom, and Bradleigh's mom. Jelani is 21, senior in college, finishing up in December, EMT, going on to med school next year.
Woohoo! Let's
Symone
do it.
is, yes, a junior in high school, crazy high GPA, looking at only Ivy League colleges, graduating next year. Annaya is actually who brought me into this work. She was stillborn and 39 weeks gestational age. And it blew my mind. I had no idea of the Black maternal maternal morbidity or Black infant mortality rates.
Yeah.
And I had to learn more, had to see more, and I was wondering why someone wasn't running through the streets saying, "Hello, ladies and gents. You need to wake up and become aware of what's going on around you."
Yep.
So not wanting Annaya's stillbirth, which I refer to as my rebirth, because Annaya passed away in utero while I was waiting to be seen by my OB on August 26, 2010,
Wow.
and was born on August 27th, 2010, which was my 37th birthday. So I always refer to that as my rebirth because I don't even know who I was before Annaya. So not wanting, I'm a doula, full spectrum doula. I've been a doula for 10 years. I am a maternal health advocate. I'm an herbalist. I'm a childbirth educator. I'm sitting for my CLC exam at the end of the month.
That's so exciting.
I'm a diaspora death doula, a fertility doula.
I'm going to have to put a pin in this because we have not had anybody that has been on our podcast series that is a death doula. And I have been reading tons of information about people's experience. Can you just sit right there and tell us what a lot of people call themselves different things when it pertains to being a death doula. So tell us a little bit about what you do and what does that mean and how are you supporting people?
Well, to be fully transparent, the only person I've really supported was my grandmother who transitioned almost a year ago. And I've been mainly providing support to families who suffer the loss of an infant from conception through age 2 for the past 10 years. And I'm just now dipping my toe into the death doula space. But what death doulas do, and I'm getting comfortable, so bear with me for a minute. Get comfortable, that's all right. Yes, we do. What a death doula does is they hold space. And they actually find out when and where possible what the person who will be transitioning wants. We make death plans. And if you haven't done it already, I would advise everyone listening to do one. You never know when, and you don't want I'm not one for surprises.
Right.
So you want people to know where your stuff is at,
Mm-hmm.
what your passwords are,
Mm-hmm.
how you want to be, if you cannot speak for yourself. What do you want? What are your wishes? What do you want to wear? You know, do you want clothing changes as Aretha did? You know, what do you want, you know, your last moments to be like? What would you like? Just like someone on death row, they get their last meal. If possible, what do you want your last meal to be?
Wow.
You know, there are certain things that you have to think about. Who's going to get the house if you own a house? Who gets that car? Who is going to take care of your children? You know, I mean, that one fits with me because remember I said my oldest is 21.
Yeah.
And I didn't even get to my youngest yet. My youngest is my rainbow and she's 7.
Wow.
You know? And being a doula, I am working with families who are pregnant. I did not want Annaya to be my last personal birth experience.
Wow.
Because I wouldn't have been able to keep on with birth work if she had been. I would have lived in constant fear. So as a death doula, when I was working with my grandmother, everything, I mean, it was an amazing experience to bring her home from rehab and care for her right here, generational, meaning my aunt was here, her youngest daughter, her son. I was here with all 3 of my children, and we all collectively loved on, cared for. We did everything for her. We did her baths, we did her changings, etc. And at the very end, my final act was to swaddle her before she was taken by the mortuary. To make the obituaries, you know, all of that can be done before a person dies because we want people to be able to tell their own stories.
Wow. That's powerful. And I think that's like the one thing that I find in the doula arena is that we are all about people owning their own narrative, their own stories, and helping them to process that and to think about how they want to navigate these different spaces. And so I am so intrigued with how different doulas are practicing in different areas to help support and grow people's journeys, regardless if they're, before and after life. Tell us a little bit more, Nneka. Like you do a lot of great work to help people kind of find their journey, to understand where they want to go when it comes to their bodies. What other project are you working on currently that you want to share with us? Well, and also your old project too, because I know you've already gone to another one. You guys, I already know the kind of story, so I'm gonna set this up.
well, I'm fully immersed in several projects. My newest baby is the Black History Month baby that you're actually going to be speaking a night in. And I'm excited. I didn't know what to do, but I knew something had to be done because people still don't understand the genocide that we're in regards to Black maternal health and Black infant health. And absolutely. I figure we can take 28 days and talk to birthing families. You know, if you know anybody who plans to give birth or is pregnant or was pregnant or what have you, it's time for them to understand that we are in a serious decline when it comes to the positive things that we think about when there's birth. We have a whole generation of young Black birthers, or potential birthers, I should say, who are going to be graduating from high school and college and deciding not to have children because they live in fear.
The truth.
Now, let me tell you something. when my 16-year-old told me at 14 that God did not give her life for her to lose her life to give somebody else a baby, it floored me, because I want a lot of grandchildren. I think I deserve a lot of grandchildren. I want grandchildren surrounding me, and I want to be able to love on them the way that my grandmother loved on me.
Yeah.
However, my oldest daughter says that if she ever has a sister-in-law, or, she's not letting her little sister or her sister-in-law die to give me my grandchildren. Now, I take offense to that. So I have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
I am that town crier running through the streets saying, hello, this is real. It's not fake news.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it became a lot more real this month, January 12th. I lost a niece.
Wow.
Who could not, she had HELLP syndrome last year. A week after finally bringing her preemie home from the hospital, her toddler brought COVID home. And everyone got better, but she kept getting worse and worse and worse. We thought she was going to be okay because she seemed to pick up. She was doing okay. She had been moved finally got out of ICU on Christmas, moved to rehab, and was doing okay. And due to complications of COVID, she passed away suddenly. And leaving a now 7-month-old baby girl and a 3-year-old daughter. So it's real. Maternal mortality is real.
Yeah.
But if we can catch it at that morbidity factor, then we have hope. So for the entire month of February, I'm hosting the Educating Black Birthers series, 8 p.m. Eastern time, on Zoom, just to educate people on, I'm not going to be doing all of the talking. I'm actually hoping to blend in with the wall. I have phenomenal speakers, such as yourself, coming out.
So excited. Thank you.
Yes. People who have been doing this work pretty much. Now, I'm 48 years old. So I know they've been doing it all of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And some have been doing it most of my life, if not all of my life. And these are people who are actively in the communities doing the work. And it's imperative because their numbers are down. So we need to find out from them what their secrets are.
Yeah.
And how are they saving their Black birthing people?
Absolutely.
So that's what's happening the entire month of February. And I am fired up. I've even pulled in my son to talk about emergency medicine protocols and what they look like.
That's real good.
Yes, for when he's called, when he's called to a birth. So I'm excited about that. And I'm just fired up and ready to go. And I'm going to try to keep it to the hour mark that week, because I'm long-winded. I'm going to try to keep it to that hour.
I am too, so don't you worry.
I'm going to try to keep it to that hour, okay? But I can't make any promises. I always have an after party, so people who want to leave can leave. I stop recording, and then we have our little powwow afterwards where we can sit for hours and just chew it out, just talk about everything that's on our hearts. So that's one of the projects.
I love it.
I'm also working with, and I think it's either February 28th or 26th. We're waiting to hear back to confirm with one of our legislators. I'm going to be working with Count the Kicks, or Healthy Birthday, to talk about different Black maternal health issues here in Massachusetts.
I love it.
So we will see how that goes. I'm a Count the Kicks ambassador. And
for those that don't know what that is, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. I wish I had known, and all of this stuff came after losing Annaya. Before losing Annaya, it seemed like it was okay for a doctor or a medical professional or even a midwife to ask their clients, have you felt the baby move? But after Annaya, I learned that that it's imperative for families to count kicks.
Yes.
And if they don't count kicks, they won't get to know their the rhythm of their baby's movement. What's normal and what's not normal. When is that baby slowing down? The slowing down process is what actively shows that something might be wrong. Now, it could be nothing. But in most instances, when the baby stops moving, babies have no concept of room. So don't say, oh, the baby's slowing down because there's not enough room. We grow to the size of a watermelon with these little people inside of us, kicking and moving and jabbing and turning and doing whatever they want, because that's the only space that they're familiar with. If you notice, when they come out, they stay in the fetal position because they have no idea for a while that there's space.
Yeah.
And then once we unswaddle them and put them into a new space where they can feel around and see, wait a minute, what is this? There's more space. So for someone to ask, to say that babies slow down or stop moving as much towards the end of a pregnancy because of this lack of space, that's bull. And anybody who's carried a baby full term knows that baby still does leg up.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You know, they still stretch, they still flop, they still kick, jab. And so the purpose of kick counting and why I support, and there are a lot of apps out there that can help you with this, but I support Count the Kicks because they allow for you to download information. You can track your baby's movements.
Yeah.
And then you have proof that you can take to your doctor. You can print out the kick counting history.
Wow.
Take it to your doctor, email it to your doctor, do whatever, just get it to the doctor and say, this is the baby's normal pattern.
Yeah.
And for these past however many days or weeks, this is what we've been dealing with.
Okay, that is phenomenal. Yeah. I have never heard of this program. And that is, you guys, if you do not know what she's talking about, do like me. I'm going to definitely do some research. I want to look this up because that is something that I struggled with when I was pregnant with my daughter, because they would like say, how many times did she cook kicking or whatever? And it's such a weird space because you're learning about your body. You don't really know what you should be feeling, how you should be feeling it. But you're learning, you know, even your baby's body. How does that baby's body move within you? And so it's a difficult thing when you're trying to figure that out, and to have something that can help you communicate that with the doctor. I love that so much.
And not only through this kick counting process, the way that, and they've upgraded their app so that now that every time you feel a movement, you can press and log it in. Yes. And
that is awesome.
It's a beautiful thing. I mean, babies move, they dance in utero when they hear music. You know, they get cold, and just like we stop moving when we get cold, they stop moving when you drink something cold. So you get to really, really get to know your baby and bond with your baby through counting these kicks. And then when you really get to know the baby, when a doctor says to you, well, how do you know that the baby's movements have slowed down? You pull out your app, which can be found on your phone, or on your mobile device, or on your computer, or wherever you're doing this. And you say, well, this is the baby's history from 28 weeks to now.
This is huge.
Yes.
I love this. This is so good because, again, we need to figure out what tools can empower our pregnancy, because a lot of us don't know how to communicate. We can barely communicate about our bodies, and when we're not pregnant, about what's going on, and feeling like we can advocate for our body. But being able to say, hey, this is what I've learned about my body, what's going on with me and my baby, I need help. And this is something that I talked about on one of my other podcast series called Finding Strength in Love. And one of the mothers was saying that, you know, when she knew she was having her baby, she was having a miscarriage. And she was like trying to convince these doctors and the nurse that she needed to come in. Because at first she was talking to the receptionist. She was like, no, I want to talk to my nurse. She's like, no, I want to talk to my doctor. And they were like, you're overreacting, especially with Black women, because we can be very, we're different when we communicate sometimes when we are in urgency. And, sometimes people will think that's, oh, you're being over dramatic, you're being this, you're being that. No, this is a sense of concern, and there's a heightened sense in my body. I need to take care of this. And so some women are not able to feel like they're being heard, or they're not communicating, or if they're communicating, they're being ignored. And that's not always. There's some great nurses and doctors and people in this community that are doing things, but we've got a long way to go, because we have to confront our own biases, and we have to confront how can we make our healthcare system more of a healthcare system versus a sick care system?
Exactly. And we have to know that if one person says no, you can keep going. Yes. Until you find that person who's actually going to take you seriously.
We got to put a pin in that, because a lot of us do not do that. What gives you the courage, or how do you encourage your clients to take that step of saying, okay, you're not going to listen to me, I'm going to go somewhere else? Because for some reason, as women birthing people, we get real loyal to these doctors that are not doing anything to us. I don't know what it is. I don't know why, but it's something that when we don't feel very connected with people, we feel like that is our only option. So can you talk to me a little bit about how you coach your clients into understanding that advocacy part?
Let me tell you something. When I was pregnant with my youngest, I saw my OB was she could have been one of my children. She was just that young. And any issue that I had, she said that I was, it was because of my age. So I was naturally, having my previous pregnancy ended in stillbirth, I was nervous.
Wow.
So that entire first trimester, I was back and forth being seen by that doctor. Well, one day after 4 visits to the ER between appointments, this doctor walks into the room. I'm in seeing her. She walks into the room, back to me, didn't look at me, looking at her computer screen the entire time. Back, I'm back here behind her.
Wow.
And she's saying to me something about my age again. Let me just tell you, I got up off of the table. She's still talking. My shoes and coat and purse were behind the curtain, which led to the doorway. I slid to the right, moved to the right.
Wow.
Slid behind that curtain, picked up my coat, purse, and shoes, walked in my socked feet out of that door. She was still talking. And then I booked it down the hallway to the elevator. People looking at me like I'm crazy, because I'm trotting down the hallway with my shoes and my purse and my coat in my hand. I get to the elevator, put my shoes on, put my coat on, got onto the curb, and then dialed another hospital and asked for another doctor who I had met shortly after losing Annaya, who showed me that I could have it my way, showed me that birth was to be had my way, because I saw her a couple of weeks after that. And she asked me, because for whatever reason, the old hospital would not send my records over to her. And she said, well, can we get another, I want to do another pelvic exam. I said, no. Can we do this, that, and the other? I said, no. She didn't press it. We moved forward. Right. When it was time for me to give her my my birth plan. Now, remember, I had been a doula for several years at this point. It was a beautiful negotiation. Absolutely beautiful. I told her from day one, the very first appointment, that I did not want to see anyone else. I did not want to be touched by anyone else. I did not want to show up and be greeted by a stranger.
Right.
So the day we even set the date for my induction, because I did not want to carry beyond 37 weeks.
Wow.
And I carried to 37.2. chose my daughter's birth date. And because I told that doctor that I didn't want to see anyone else throughout the rest of my pregnancy, if she was going to be late, she called me herself. If she couldn't see me and needed to reschedule, she called me herself. And I was not expecting this, because we all know, especially people who've given birth, you're rarely delivered by the person you see.
Yeah.
To the hospital. When it was time for me to push, she walked in and said, I hear someone's ready to have a baby. Let's have a baby. And she taught my daughter. And I could barely push because I was crying so much over the fact that I had it my way.
Wow.
When it was time for me to be discharged, she came back to the hospital and discharged me herself. When it was time for my 6 to 8 week appointment, she gave me my annual PAP at that appointment, so I would not have to see anyone else for a year. You can have it your way. Beautiful. You are paying for a service. See, we look at it wrong. And until Lee, my youngest child's birth, I looked at it the same way that everybody else did. This is now I look at it for what it is. This is a fee-for-service product. Okay. You may not be pulling cash out, and in some instances you are, pulling cash out to pay for this service. This is your money. Would you go to somebody who disrespected you to get your hair or your nails done?
Absolutely not.
Would you go to somebody to give you a massage who disrespected you?
No.
Would you go into the supermarket and buy spoiled meat or sour milk? No. So why are you accepting anything from these people who graduated from somebody's college and learned something secondhand?
Woo!
Why are you allowing someone who cannot see you beyond a 15-minute period to dictate how you feel? If you know you feel like crap and they look at you and tell you you feel like sunshine, does that make you feel better? The answer is no.
No.
So when it's exactly, little one, when you hear
my coworker,
she's like, yep. But see, you have to look at it that way. Would you go to a fast food restaurant and allow them to drop your food on the floor, watch them step on it, pick it up, put it back in the patty, in the bun, and hand it to you? No. So we have to start looking at birth in the same respect, because this is a life or death situation. We have a doctor here in Massachusetts who says that Black women are inferior, who treats us like trash, and he's still allowed to practice. I have a problem with that.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And he's a world-renowned doctor, expert in this field, but he's using Black bodies to experiment on.
Oh my
so goodness. That he can get the right answers for his white patients.
You know what's so crazy? A lot of us think that this stuff is not going on and it's far and distant. And, they talk a lot, oh, this happened only to the Tuskegee Airmen, or, this is like something that's happened long ago. And it's because many people don't talk about it. We don't collectively talk about what is happening to our health as a community of color.
And when you put it into dollars and cents, when you go in to see your doctor, the amount of money that's being billed to your insurance or billed to you if you don't have insurance is an astronomical amount. That should make you say, well, this person's getting paid to treat me like trash. So let me take myself out of this equation. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. See, until I got fed up with that doctor that day, never once seeing her face from the moment she walked into the room, me fearing that I was going to lose this child. I was 40. Wow. I was 41 when I had her, figuring this was my last pregnancy. I deserved to have it my way. I did have it my way and you deserve the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I think a lot of times when we think of people having it their way, we think that it can't be done medically. We think that whatever that person says, everything else is thrown out the way. It's about a partnership, but hearing your patient and hearing your person and saying, this is what this individual needs, and this is what she is, or the person that is giving birth requesting, that is what we need to be adhering to. And we need to figure out different ways that we can partner with that person, because we have had a lot of broken pieces within the medical community, and we need to figure out how to put that back together. We can't just put in place like, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. This is what you have to do it, because that is just making more of a gap when it comes to that transparency and that development of community when we're thinking about the healthcare community. And also too, we're not talking about how do we diversify our community. You know, it's not just doctors and nurses. There's all these people that can come together to help create this experience. It's not just those two people.
Right. There's a whole team. And see, when you look at birth or any aspect of birth, you have to look at the whole team. You look at the mental health clinician, you look at the doula, you look at the OB or the midwife. You look at every member. You look at the nurse practitioner or whoever else. You look at the PA. I loved my PA with my youngest. You look at all of the pieces in the puzzle. And then you have to, in your puzzle for your dynamic, and then you have to say, okay, when you evaluate these pieces, which one is not fitting? And that piece has to be removed, because one ill-fitted piece will make the whole system crumble. Then you have to deal with postpartum depression and psychosis.
Yeah.
Then you have to deal with the guilt over whatever happened, whether, the birth trauma. Then you have to deal with, what happens if the morbidity side of things, and then you're going to worry about the mortality. Am I going to die? These are all things that our women have to put in place. That's why you need a therapist.
Yeah.
You need a therapist while you're pregnant.
Yeah.
Those hormones are crazy. If you've never been pregnant before, you really don't know what's going on.
Yeah, you don't. You really don't.
Anybody can tell you anything, and you'll believe them. Lord knows, I know I'm probably going to be slapped by the ancestors for saying this, but please, please, please stop listening to these old women who don't remember giving birth 60 years ago.
That part.
I can't remember everything, every aspect of being pregnant and giving birth 21 years ago. So I know they can't remember 60 years. Don't listen to them when they tell you, well, I bounced right back. That's not possible.
No.
It did not happen. You had a whole person come out of your vagina. In some instances, 2, and in some instances 3.
Yep.
Or more.
I don't mean to cut you off, because you're hitting something that I've been really trying to nail in. There's a difference between survival, trauma, and care. Did you have to do what you had to do out of survival? Did you do what you had to do out of trauma? Did you have to do what you had to do because you know that you deserve care, and you understand that the body needs to heal and mend a certain way? A lot of people did not have that option, or they didn't even know about it, or they didn't have the tribe to basically make that happen. We have the knowledge now to be able to say, you know what, we need to take back our births and the way we're birthing and the way we are caring for one another after birth, even regardless of what spectrum that's on. You have the right to get care, and you should have people around you that are going to help you to physically, mentally, and spiritually heal. This is not just only for the birthing person, but also for the partner too, because we need that whole family to be whole as they move forth in this new journey.
Right. That's right. And it's the only way that they'll remain a family unit. When there is any kind of stress brought in during the postpartum period. Now, I often compare the postpartum period to being a war zone. Think about it. And when you're at war, you have the enemy that you capture, and you waterboard, You do whatever it takes to get that information out of them. So let's switch it up a little bit. When you have a baby, these babies, birth is a trauma for them. Remember, they were in this warm space, given everything they needed that was pseudo dark. And then we pull them out and put them in these cool places where they don't feel nestled, they don't feel warm, they don't, and all of these bright lights and noises that were muffled and strange voices because they only know their immediate family's voices. And then we expect them not to cry. We're no longer rocking them in utero.
Yeah.
And we're expecting them to know how to sleep on their own.
Yeah.
We're setting ourselves up for failure as postpartum families without that support. What happened to the times when, I mean, in other countries, non-Westernized culture countries, they still have that support. Everyone knows.
Absolutely.
I give birth. I'm at home
Yep.
in the bed,
Mom,
head covered, foot covered, full body covered for 40 days, 38 days, 50 days, however long, 60 days, 90, weeks, 40 weeks, however many weeks, 42 weeks, etc., depending on a culture. But in Westernized culture, you have the baby today and you're back at work tomorrow. And that's all stems from slavery. Remember, the slave women would have the baby, throw the baby on their in a wrap and go back to work. We are no longer slaves. We are no longer slaves. We deserve to preserve and to heal our bodies. For those of us in cold weather climates, come on now. Why do I still see you outside in the snow and you just gave birth a week ago? Come on now. Outside playing in the snow with the kids. I don't care how much you like that white stuff that's out there that I hate. Okay? But that you're wide open. Come on. Divine started that whole Divine Isrith, who teaches the Grandma Hand series. And she talks about being wide open. You are literally wide open. You can't get any more open in life without having surgery.
Right.
And it takes time. And that's the beauty of the body, being able to over time close itself and reform and come back down from the watermelon size to the large orange or grapefruit sized uterus.
Yeah.
But we have to allow for that. Can't rush it.
And that's the hardest part. I think I'm going to be real transparent right now, y'all. Like, that's probably been the hardest part for me, is finding that balance, because you feel lazy. You feel like, okay, do I need to be doing certain things? Should I be doing certain things? Do I have to do this? No, you don't. And we're so used to going that we don't realize that there's power in rest and how much that helps us to do better and move forward in the future.
And, I want to take that word off of your tongue, because you're still postpartum. You're not lazy.
I am.
You need to be resting. You need to rest when you feel you need to be sleeping, when the baby's sleeping. I never understood it until I had my fourth child.
Yeah.
And I did all of that. I mean, partially it was because I was 41 at the time. I've been pregnant in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, y'all.
I love it.
And people are like, well, you can't, my stepmother keeps saying, well, you have one more. I say, you lost your mind. I have a titanium hip, okay? It's a wrap. I got a titanium hip when my youngest was 3. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. I'm not pushing nothing else out of me that will be calling me mom. I may adopt, but that's about it. But yeah, you should not feel lazy. You're entitled. This is one of the only times in your life you will be entitled to rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I taught my older children how to care for me in my postpartum period. We meal prepped in the weeks before my my delivery. We prepared everything, made sure they needed everything, because I had her like a week into the first full week of school. So we had to make sure they had everything they needed for school. My children would never eat school lunch. So we had to, talk about what they were going to need in order to successfully make their own lunches.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. And plus, I still had my elders, my auntie and my grandmother to do whatever they could do, know.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful thing to have a community. And if you don't have family like that, what do you think your neighbors are?
Yeah.
Your friends are.
Yeah.
You have to build your family when in absence of family.
Absolutely. And I feel like this is where my doula really came in. Even though I had my mom, my dad, my husband, his mom, my doula was still there. Like, she was like, okay, let's do this postpartum thing. Like, I got some food. I'm gonna come over and cook for you, checking on me every day. She's like, I know that you have a lot of people, but I need to make sure that you have an outlet of somebody else that can really come and connect with you and really make sure that you're okay. Because a lot of times people get caught up with the baby and they don't get caught up with the care of the mother.
No, with my first pregnancy, my mother came from Florida. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, she's coming to help me out. She's going to be doing laundry. She's going to be cooking. Oh, no, 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 no. My mother came and sat here for the entire month of August, holding my child. That's all she did while she was here. She held that baby, brought him back to me when it was time to change him, or when he was asleep. But the rest of the time, an entire month of holding that child. And she held him in a way that when she left, all I could do was following suit. So up until he was like a year old, he was putting his head up under my chin and his knees into my chest, because that's how she held him. And I was like, oh my God. So that's with the first. With the second, when I really needed support, because we brought her home, but we had to take her back. She had a congenital heart defect and she had open heart surgery at 2 weeks of age. So everybody scattered. But knowing now what I should have known then, I'm here to provide the support to people who were like me through the different phases.
Yeah.
I saw that I really needed the support. The only times I developed postpartum depression was when people scattered, which were my middle two pregnancies.
Wow.
One because the child was chronically ill, and the other because the child died.
Wow.
So
can we talk about that just for a second here? Because there's a conversation we're missing, which is, what do we do when we have families that are going through different types of, I don't like calling them crisis, but like the different transitions. Like if you have a child that is sick, or if you have a child that has passed away, what can the community do to help really support people?
Well, when the baby dies or the mother dies, well, I'll take it two separately. When the baby dies, the family needs support. They need to know that they have people in their corner, someone to come in and organize meals, so they don't have to think about it. Someone who can be the runner, the person who runs things over to the mortuary if they need something, or run to the grocery store if something's needed. Just run if needed. Someone to just sit there and hold space, open ears, closed mouth for that family. You almost need a blocker. What is it? Person on defense. That's it. In football, they have like the defense, the whole line of defense.
Yeah.
You almost need that, because there's always going to be somebody who wants to come in and ask stupid questions or make stupid comments. And that's not something that the family needs. What they mainly need is to know that they have supports, even if they don't want to talk about it. If they need to cry, they need to have a crying team. Like you have a prayer team at church, you still need a cry team.
I am all about that. All about that.
Elders sometimes, because they were not allowed to feel when they went through, some of them can be the worst people on these teams, because you'll hear, well, when my this died or when my that died, I didn't do all that. It's not that they didn't feel sorrow. It's that during that time, they were not allowed to openly grieve. And see, if you take the space that you need to grieve, that scab that forms on your heart will form stronger than it would for someone who's not taking the space and the time. Because grief is something you have to go through.
Yeah.
So first things first, I would suggest a meal tree. There's an app for everything now. I love these days. There's like a meal tree app.
Yep.
There's a journaling app. There's a family tree app. There's everything out there that you need to stay connected. So definitely coordinate with neighbors and friends to get these people fed for at least the first couple of months of this journey. Don't ever feel the need as a sister, mother, grandparent, friend, godparent of the baby, feel the need to go into the house and suggest breaking down the nursery. That's personal. That's none of our business. That's not within. I've had families fall apart, and stop speaking to loved ones because while the family was at the hospital, other family members decided it was time to break down the nursery.
Ooh,
yeah. And so you can't do that, not without talking to them beforehand. So just follow the family's lead. Now, when a mother passes away, and this is why it's imperative to know your loved ones and to have these plans, because, certain things happen that you can never be prepared for. And having that support system for the partner or husband is imperative. Constant, the person might have been breastfeeding or might have planned to breastfeed. So when the mother dies, then other arrangements have to be made. When my niece passed away, my niece's husband is a deputy, and they have been taking care of him. But not everyone has that support. What they did was they took care of clothes for like the first year of the child's life. Toys, formula, even though we're in a formula shortage right now.
For real.
All that, what is it, distilled water, excuse me, to make the bottles. His freezer and refrigerator remain filled. Everything, diapers, anything you can think of. You want to take things off of the partner's plate so that they can focus on loving that child and remaining children. Making memories, having someone go to the mortuary and make a cast mold of that mother's hand, and then making a mold of the children's hands to put in that hand so that they can see that their mother held their hand, and they'll have that for life because it's cast. And it's something to show them because there's no way that child will remember that mother.
Wow.
When the mother, when they're an infant. Just holding space and being there, never saying any at least statements, which tend to be offensive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or any you didn't need, or even, I know as Black people, we tend to be highly spiritualized and religious. Keep religion out of it unless the family brings it in. So that would mean no, God needed them more.
Absolutely.
No, sitting at the right hand of Jesus or any of that, because it can be offensive. The way that the people are thinking in the moment, religion comes later, in their time when they're able to process.
Totally agree.
Such a loss. So definitely, that's something to think about when you're supporting your family members. And remember, that everybody has the right to grieve. It's their journey. Men and women grieve differently. Men need a men's corner to grieve. Women, we have a lot of support.
Yeah.
Men need more support. Men need
Yes.
other men who know what they're going through. You know, and as the doula, everybody, there's a doula for everything. So
yes,
there definitely needs to be, in this instance, if the birth doula is not available, there are plenty of bereavement doulas who can do this work and go in and assess a situation in a matter of minutes and provide those supports and put in place the newborn care specialist, the postpartum care doula for the male, and whatever else they see that this family needs, or even a nanny. I asked my sister to ask her son-in-law if he'd be interested in a nanny, because the babies are 7 months and 3.
Yeah.
So, he's been out of work since she went into the hospital in October, and he has to go back to work.
Wow.
So those are things you can think about, and always support from a place of never wanting anything back from that support.
This is powerful. I'm blown away by this conversation because we haven't had it. And, it was one of the things that really hit me really hard in my birth plan. I actually addressed my fear of dying during childbirth and my child dying during childbirth. And that was one of the scariest things to write about, because I needed them to understand that I'm reacting this way because I have fear in my mind, and I need to make sure that I have a team that is not biased, does not have any stereotypes, that are going to hear me and they're going to connect with me. And this lady named Diane, she was at the hospital and my mom couldn't come up because of the pandemic and things like that and the different policies. My mom got on the phone and she said, please protect my baby. And I don't know how that resonated with her, but it resonated, I felt, in a very powerful way. And she took care of me with my doula. Like after I had my baby, my doula couldn't come up with me. She came up and she was like, hey, I just want to make sure that you're okay. I just want to make sure you don't need anything. And I want you to know I'm here for you. And I was just like it just brought me to tears, because I'm like, this is what everybody needs. This is what everybody should be entitled to. This is what everybody should experience, because that healing comes from the things that people do within the hospital that are within that system. When you have these experiences, it breaks down that wall and it helps you to be more open, to be more transparent, to say that you can be taken care of by people who went into the field that actually were passionate about it, because that passion can burn out real quick. I don't know if you're familiar with the term compassion fatigue, but this is where people run in there and they're so excited about doing it, and then they start getting they start seeing some patterns with people, and it really it can create like a stereotype. It also can wear them down, the passion that they need, or the care that they usually would give, because they've seen so much of it, and maybe they've had different outcomes, or maybe they're just there's so many collections of pieces of that. I'm just giving a few, but we need to deal with that so that people can get back to their first love of caring for people and seeing that this person's not just being a jerk, or this person's not just being this. Like, we need to be able to see, like, there's a deeper rooted issue. And if somebody can write in their birth plan, like, hey, I have some concerns about Black women dying during childbirth. This is giving me a lot of anxiety. This is what I need from my team. Or, you know what, I have suffered physical trauma, and people touching my body and being in this facility is making me really anxious. These are the things that I feel are super critical within a birth plan, as well as it's super important for us to be able to share a piece of our story so that we can really humanize ourselves to those that are working with us, that are literally seeing us for the very first time, which still blows my mind. You have a whole team and you're expected, that team is expected to see you that one day, has never met you. You've been going to all these doctor visits and you may not even get the doctor that you've been visiting with. It's heartbreaking what's happening within our field, because I feel like a lot of it is avoidable. It doesn't have to be.
It is. It really is avoidable. And I'm taken back to the pandemic. I was unable to physically be in the room with my clients. So we did a lot of Zoom birth.
Yeah.
And the fact that the medical establishment, they'd walk in and everybody would speak and they didn't introduce me on their laptop or their tablet as their doula. And they'd be like, oh, and the way that they acted completely changed. It was hilarious.
Wow.
But and then the question, are you recording? Yes, I'm recording, so that they can have the recording of their birth. But having to teach my clients and teach the partners and loved ones or whoever was going to be in the room with them, that, if they felt that they were not being listened to, and this was supposed to be a joke of sorts, to throw themselves across the body of their loved one until they could be heard. And I had to explain to the males, never raise your voice. Because most of my clients have been Black throughout their past 11 years, 10 years, 11 years, almost 11 years. And we all know what happens when a Black man raises his voice and how he's perceived. So I had to teach them all how to say things, in the same tone that they had been speaking, no matter how concerned they became. And I only had one father to actually throw his body across his wife's body to say, no, can we just slow things down a little bit? I don't feel like I'm being heard. And I was like, okay, I've never seen this before. But it was cute. It was really cute.
Yeah.
And he was heard. Because in a time where in a non-emergent situation, I should say, you can slow things down. You can think things over.
Yeah.
You can say no to drugs, throughout the pandemic. I don't know if you saw it, but I know I saw they were using, narcotics for pain for our pregnant people with live births.
Wow. No. Yeah. I heard about the nitro oxide. They said they weren't allowing it in some hospitals. And
oh no, they were using like pain medication, like real pain. Yes, one of my clients, my very first, we shut down March 2020. And I couldn't physically be there for her April birth.
Whew.
And October 2020, she called me crying because she found her notes. Since I couldn't physically be there and was checking in every couple of hours, she was laying down taking a nap with her son, and she remembered something that had happened, went back to the notes that she had taken and called me. Have you ever heard of this medication? She said. And I'm like, yeah, that's a narcotic. And she's like, oh my God. Because she was wondering why she couldn't remember a lot of his birth. And that was why. And she felt violated.
That's so crazy.
She ended up writing. I had a client last May text me and say, this nurse is saying she wants to give me this. And she's saying it's not a narcotic, is it? And I said, well, did you Google it? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, what did it say? Because I didn't want to just out and out say, okay, it's a narcotic.
Right.
She said, yeah, it said it was a narcotic. And I said, what else did it say? Well, it's not supposed to be used during labor and delivery. So what's your answer going to be? And she's like, I'm going to decline. I said, of course. I said, trust your gut. Trust your gut. Always trust your gut. And since this couple did not listen, she ended up, she was induced at 4 a.m.
Wow.
and could not dilate.
Ugh.
Now, knowing her family history, I said at 4 a.m. when they called me, C-section. I'd never said it before, but knowing her family history, I said C-section. And they said, no, we want to try. And hours went by, and that night she started getting a fever and so on and so forth. So she ended up having a C-section.
Oh, man.
But the fact that nurses feel okay to say, I mean, an epidural is normal, you know?
Right.
But during the pandemic, just to keep people quiet, keep them, one of my clients was told that they wanted her to rest, and she was given a narcotic.
Wow. This is crazy.
One of my clients that gave birth last year was so loopy during birth that when her baby came out, he wasn't crying and he was gray, and they worked on him.
Oh my God.
There was no response.
Ugh.
So I said all of that to say this. You have to understand what birth is and what birth is meant to be. And how you want your birth is important. How you want to feel after you give birth is even more important, because those feelings are going to determine whether you suffer from postpartum depression.
Wow.
Postpartum guilt. That's why I say everybody needs a therapist as soon as they find out that they're pregnant. You know, and once again, Postpartum Support International has oodles and boodles of therapists who are trained for perinatal mental health. So definitely anyone who's pregnant or newly postpartum within their first year, there's studies saying 2 years now, but definitely reach out to Postpartum Support International in your area, and either A, get into one of their support groups.
Absolutely.
Or B, find yourself someone to talk to, because having these little screaming people that won't let you sleep, which is a reason why you have postpartum depression,
right,
really does change you. And not just changes the whole family dynamic and family unit.
It does. You know, it's so funny because I was literally telling somebody, you guys probably heard my baby earlier. My husband and I, we share an office. And so her grandparents watch her and on certain days. And so when they come in and they grab her and do different things, some days are like really good for her and some days are really bad for her, but it depends on how she slept that night. It depends on what's going on in her little body. And then I'm trying to manage my emotions, my things, you know, and it can be so much. And it literally makes you realize like, oh, I'm a different person at this point right now. And I'm not the same person. And when you come to that realization, it makes you understand that you need more. And if you don't act on that need and you don't figure out who you need to talk to, that's where you're really going to fall into a dark hole. And that's, I always catch myself and always remind myself, like, your strength is in your unit. Your strength is in the resources around you. Right. Nneka, what's the one last thing that you want our listeners to hear before we end this podcast?
Well, regardless of who you're seeing in the medical community, you can't have it your way. You have to demand in a nice way. I don't want you to get kicked out of your hospital. If one doctor's not doing it for you, is not listening to you, there are so many more. There are new doctors every year. So it's time for you to step into your power and honor yourself. And say, I'm not taking this. Oh, you said what to me? Oh, no. That was not necessary. Okay, it's time for me to find someone else. And, you know, it's okay for you to switch and keep switching, whatever provider you're seeking. Your PCP, your cardiologist, your OBGYN, it doesn't matter. Medicine is medicine. And your insurance is paying for it. Or you are out of pocket. Now, if you're being mistreated and you're paying out of pocket, come on now.
That part. Nneka, if people want to connect with you and want to learn more about what you're doing, where can they find you?
Oh God. Okay, where can they find me? My email is Nneka at motherisupreme.org. My websites are www.annaya.org and www.motherisupreme.org.
I love it. And no worries, you guys. We will have all of her contact information down below. Nneka, I want to thank you so much for being here. I am just so blessed by this conversation. Thank you for pouring into our listeners. Thank you for pouring into me and making me think about this journey that I'm on as a birth advocate, and really spreading the word and having more conversations about what can we do to make a difference and a change in our community. I want to thank you guys so much for listening. Remember, if you know somebody that needs to listen to this podcast, do not give them candy or flowers. Send them a podcast, something that can feed their mind, soul, and spirit. Until next time, you guys, see you soon. Bye.